My parents watch all of these.
So do mine.
I think I see people coming.
We're live.
We're live.
Preet, we are live.
We are live, not Memorex. I don't know if people remember Memorex. It's like just two Indian guys. It's like two Indian guys on a Thursday morning.
Yeah. You think that show name would work? Two Indian guys on a Thursday morning?
No, what would be better
What if it became so successful that then it was then every morning, but then we were anchored in the original name?
You're getting way ahead of ourselves. I was going to say, why don't we have a white guy in between us, and it could be called Between Two Indians?
Oh, I like that.
Like a play on Burns.
Yeah. I also do feel like, I think I'm in support of also just like giving white guys more opportunities.
Well, they've been held back. You were responsible for holding many of them back. I think your total domination of Substack,
right,
has hurt many a Caucasian man. Has it not? Has it not?
Whenever I see Fox News clips about myself, it is suggesting something along those lines.
You know, I can tell already that my entire script for this conversation has gone out the window. So when do you start in earnest these conversations?
Oh, we're starting.
We're in it. 40,000 people?
No, we're in it.
Do we have enough? Okay.
The people are watching. Yeah.
So
Preet is, you might be able to tell, Preet, while the host of this conversation, is very new to the Substack Live.
I am new.
Format. If you give Preet an international terrorist criminal mastermind, he knows exactly what to do. This guy knows the protocols, he knows the procedures, but you put us on a Substack Live, and it's like, what is this? What are we doing? I like it. I like it.
First of all, I have a very old iPhone.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would look much more striking. But I have an old iPhone. I would look almost as young as Anand, and I had to buy a stand.
Yeah, the stand is very important.
So I have that, and I have my backdrop in my law office.
Yeah.
By the way, do we call you Anand or Anand?
Anand.
Right, that's the correct way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go with the correct way.
You and I had a great conversation once on the podcast. It's been a while.
Long time.
We talked about the difficulty of unusual names in America.
Yes.
And I would venture to guess, since we had that conversation, the name Anand Giridharadas trips off the tongues of most Americans now. Does it not?
You'd be surprised. I will say this. It was one of the most, I don't mean to tell a story out of school, but I think you're fine with it. When we did the podcast, it was your Stay Tuned podcast. I think it was in a studio. It was like pre-COVID. So you had to take a subway to Midtown, and we had a whole conversation.
You had to show ID to get in.
You started with this whole thing about how all these Americans can't say names properly, and isn't it so ridiculous? And then you introduced me, and you said my name wrong.
Then I screwed up your name.
You said my name wrong, and I was like, even Indian people say my name wrong. Which, by the way, my name is hard even in India. My last name, my first name is easy.
Even because I know a lot of the Indian. My name, by the way, my full and proper name. Here's a news alert, everyone. Is Preet Bharara. That's not easy, but your name is in a different league, my friend.
It is. I never realized how similar it is to Pretender. It feels like you could be in like a band.
No. Yeah, no, it was great growing up. It's not a problem at all. In
I'm sorry to re-traumatize you there.
You did this last time. I think you actually solicited from me, for the first time in decade, memories of my bullying experiences. So can we not do that?
Did we talk about we won't do that. Yeah. I want to say one thing about American progress as it relates to pronunciation. And this goes to one of the things that I think about this whole era in general, but we are so focused on the outlandish chauvinistic authoritarian movement that is trying to destroy pluralism in this country, that we sometimes fail to remember that they're a backlash movement, and that there has been enormous change over the last generation for the better that has engendered this resentment. And one of the clear, simple ways you see this, I don't know if you would agree, is name pronunciation, effort, as well as skill between when we were kids and now my kids. My kids are 7 and 10 years, a little bit older. First of all, the effort that people make around my kids'
Yeah.
names,
No, I think it's a different ballgame.
it's a completely different ballgame. And it's one of the ways, and it's not just in New York, it's not just in San Francisco. When I travel to all kinds of parts of this country, people's ability to say different names than they grew up with is growing, certainly younger generations, but not only.
Yeah.
But also the sense that people are entitled to like a little bit of effort to, hear themselves. And I remember when I was growing up, it seemed like a small thing, name pronunciation, who cares? There's big problems in the world.
No, it's
But
a
it's
big
this
deal.
little bit of initial friction that can happen in every interaction you have, every first day of school, every time you walk into science class, every little thing. It can be this little tax. And I think this is one of the things that has gotten so much better in this country. And we don't talk about these things enough. We focus on the things that are going the wrong way. But
No, I think
this is
that's
something
really,
I'm really grateful for.
I think that will enormously improve our GDP as well. I think not to no, I think I think it's true. Look, there are other people got around to pronouncing Arnold Schwarzenegger's name. I'm sure at the beginning that was very difficult, and I like the fact that a lot of folks don't try to simplify or change their names to make them easier. Mayor Pete. I guess he goes by Mayor Pete or Secretary Pete. Very difficult last name. Most people can pronounce it now, and I think so I agree. I think that's a good thing. So I have a theory about you. Can I tell you my
Okay.
theory?
No, tell me.
I think that you secretly aspire to be a billionaire, and you hide it very well
Wow.
by bashing billionaires.
Wow.
And part of the evidence I have, tell me you can debunk all of this in a moment. Then the floor will be yours. Is that you're quietly amassing $1 billion on this platform because
Wow.
you
Wow.
is that fair? Any of that fair?
No, that is not fair.
Or is that a Trumpian kind of ludicrous
That's wow.
accusation
That would be
that
incredible. World's most improbable billionaire.
I'm
No.
trying to be provocative. So let's say your Substack took off even more than it has, because it's apparently quite popular. When you get to $999 million, will you quit?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I will.
You heard it. You heard it here.
More importantly, long before I achieve billionaire status, I will advocate for a tax system that makes it impossible for anyone to accumulate that money.
Right.
And
But up
by the
to
way,
999. So where's the limit?
no,
I'm
I
trying to
think
know, like, where's the cutoff?
I actually like the Elizabeth Warren plan back in the day that was, starting at 2% for all assets above $50 million and 3%. By the way, and you know this, that would not even prevent fortunes from growing. Like, if
You got
you're
all
in,
serious on me. I was making a joke about your
no, I
anti-billionaire
know,
thing, and you
but wealth
straight to
taxation is such an
policy.
exciting, it's
Straight
just
to
such an exciting
policy with you.
topic. By the way, don't you think you and I talked when I was making this case against billionaires, even just having billionaires? I think it must have been 2018 or 2019.
Yeah.
Do you feel like I have been slightly redeemed by the last 6 or 7 years of how these people have conducted themselves?
So out today, fresh off the presses. I don't think it's the presses when it's a podcast. I had a guest, Evan Osnos of the New Yorker, who's a very smart guy, who also from time to time, and recently more so, focused on the ultra rich. He has a new book that has a cute title called "The Haves and the Have-Yachts," and so we had a lot of conversations about this. I think that, and we talked about this a few years ago. The issue is not, are billionaires, do they have too much money or do they not? Should they exist? Should they not? Should they be taxed more? Should they not? I mean, those are all important questions, and people address them. What's more interesting to me is politically, and then there's a substantive policy set of issues as well. But politically, and I wonder what you think, because I asked this question of Evan: do people resent the ultra rich? Do people resent billionaires, or do they aspire to be billionaires? And Or is it both? Or is it neither? Or does it depend? And if it's one or the other, what's the consequence for politics of the answer?
I love that question. And I think, by the way, if more Democrats had a coherent answer to that question, and more progressives in particular had a coherent answer to that question, it would really help. So let me answer that with the example of Cardi B.
Yeah. That's a great first example.
Cardi B.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you followed the political work or the lyrics of Cardi B.
Mostly the lyrics.
Okay. So Cardi B, artist, a lot of lyrics. So that's
Yeah.
one set of texts we can follow. And then Cardi B also engages in political life and does lives, Instagram lives. And so in Cardi B's political life, she was a big Bernie fan. She did a conversation with Bernie in 2020.
Yeah.
Talks about redistribution, talks about, having these kind of social policies that would have helped someone like her and people in communities she came from. And then if you listen to her music, there's a lot of aspiration. There's a lot of desire to have red bottom shoes. There's a lot of desire to have money, make money move, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think there's a certain way of thinking about it that's like, these are contradictory, but I actually don't think they're contradictory. I think my way to integrate those things is to say, people want agency over their lives. People want the ability to flourish and thrive and develop their potential. Part of that desire is money. Part of that desire is wanting things, wanting to be able to afford a house in an unaffordable city or town, wanting to be able to make sure you can get your kids to college, wanting to make sure that if you get the wrong ailment when you're a certain age, that you're not just toast. So the aspiration to have money and also just to build and create things is normal.
Yeah.
I don't think you need $1 billion, but I would say part of flourish. Those are all good things.
Yeah.
But the reason I think those can dovetail with also wanting to rein it in on billionaires is to the extent that billionaires actually are getting in the way of your human flourishing, they need to be reined in, right? So I think it is actually completely coherent for Cardi B to say, I want things, I want money, I want a good life, and I want to rein in a kind of ultra wealth that prevents or ring fences great education for places like Greenwich, Connecticut, and doesn't allow everybody to have a good education, or that prevents universal daycare but allows some people to have it. I think there's a way in which those things, and by the way, I think progressives have lost often in the past because they talk about redistribution in ways that are only about mitigating the threat of these billionaires, but that don't speak to people's aspirations, right?
Yeah, this is America. Land of the free. People want to aspire to great things, and sometimes that's in money, and sometimes that's in other pursuits that happen to have as a corollary a lot of money. What I love about this conversation is, which I don't know if we title these live streams, but I think it's going to be Cardi B contains multitudes.
Yes.
Right? Because
she should join us, by the way.
As I do and as you do, multitudes. Yes. You have more multitudes than I do, I think.
But she has more than both of us combined.
I'm a little flattered. No, I mean, look, there's an argument, as you were speaking, about Cardi B that, like, in some ways, to achieve ultra-rich status as an artist I don't want you thinking about this. I haven't thought about it, so I'm just throwing it off the top of my head, which is always dangerous in a live format.
Exciting.
Is there a normative or moral argument that achieving ultra-rich status by being the best basketball player in the world or being the most popular singer in the world, assuming you haven't cheated on your taxes or other things, that's sort of morally, the most sort of morally justifiable route to wealth that exists? Because you didn't inherit it, although you inherited your talent. So philosophers can talk about that. You worked hard. People voluntarily paid for the thing that you provide, music or athletic ability, or whatever the case may be. Am I onto something there or not?
People have made the argument. I think. Look, there is a scale and a spectrum here, right? Yeah. I don't think it's black or white. I think if you are, let's put it this way. If let's take the number 14 book on the New York Times bestseller list this week, which probably sold like 1,000 copies or 2,000 copies, because that's where the book industry is right now. And let's say somehow Oprah discovered that book and suddenly like a gazillion copies of that book sold, and that person suddenly has
Yeah.
like, right? Has that become a bad person overnight? Like, no. Did that person commit some infraction that they didn't commit yesterday? But no, obviously not.
Yeah.
Those are the cases where, the way you made it is untainted, right? Or relatively
Yeah.
untainted.
But
I
your point,
think still there is a question of, you know, do you recognize that you are now the beneficiary of
Mhm.
tax codes and other, you know, selective policing and various things that now are serving you and designed to serve you, that step on other people? And do you actively push back against that, speak out against it, try to change it through your political clout, which, by the way, you now have because you got $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
I do think when you think about artists and athletes, like, it's not always that clean. If you're a basketball player that's made a ton of money, well, a lot of that money may be from a Nike deal, right? And so then immediately you're getting into, what is Nike? Where is that stuff made? How is it made, right? How much, if you're a basketball player, how much of that money comes from feeding in young people an unrealistic goal of also becoming athletes that
Yeah.
that causes people to buy a bunch of things, that pays you,
Yeah.
but that is misleading to people about the odds of actually having different things happen for them in life. I
Yeah.
think there's
I think,
always there, but and then you go all the way to the other end of the spectrum where you are literally making money by befouling the planet, or you're literally making money by doing wage
yeah.
theft. It's a spectrum.
Well, there's another dimension here too on what is morally justifiable and correct, and what a meritocracy means. I love having conversations with my old college professor, Michael Sandel, who has
Oh,
written about
my
merit,
my
right?
old professor too, so good,
Yeah. So
one of the
right,
greats.
set me on a path of and a career in many ways, and also you in the way you think about things, and the fact that you do think about things. And he makes the point about the basketball star, and you think, well, that's talent, that's merit, working hard. You can't take anything, but that basketball player is the beneficiary of a certain set of economic realities that reward men's basketball. And so there is, I think the example he uses is, there must be somewhere somebody who is the best arm wrestler in the world, but the economic system and the sports federations and public consumption is not set up in a way to make that person a bajillionaire or a household name. Is that fair or not? Because there are people who are the best at whatever thing. If you happen to be lucky enough to be the best at the thing that is the most lucrative, is that a true meritocracy or not? What's your answer, Anand?
I mean, one of the things in his book, what's the Tyranny of Merit was the name of that book, right? One of
Yes,
these.
yes, yes.
I thought that was such a challenging book because, and it was such a profound book. I think we did something with him for it when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I had never thought about his idea that he says basically, yeah, money, like, people think, it's unfair the way it's distributed, or housing is unfair the way it's distributed. But he's like, the thing that human beings generally just assume, if it's yours, you got it, it's yours. No, it is intelligence
Yeah,
and skill and talent. And like, no one, you just never hear arguments of like, it's unfair to be, have a higher IQ,
yeah,
or it's unfair. And he says, hold on, like, that's the ultimate unfairness in a way. And I
yeah,
think he talks about some of these things about, assortative mating, it's called, where over the last generation, there was a lot more highly educated people marrying other highly educated people. The percentage of that really grew in these areas called super zips, which created this like effect where you had more and more, and he raises this question of like, why do we say we should protect people from not having as much money, but or restrict the power of people with too much money, but not talent, or not? And it's very, it's
yes.
provocative, and I'm not sure exactly where it leads, but it's
Well,
a
you know what it
very, very
leads? You know what's going to fix all that, Anand?
tell me.
AI.
Oh God.
AI. Some people are, and this is too much, too much of a new topic because I promised you I'd only keep you
That was
20
an
minutes.
amazing segue.
But as I understand it, among other things that AI will cause is a lifting up of people who are maybe not as talented at writing or analysis or other such things. And there will be, depending on how it's used and in what, I mean, a million caveats, assume them all, that there will be a more evening out with respect to that kind of talent and ability.
I think
I don't know if it's a good thing or not.
It could lead to that, but I think it won't, because it will be subject to the same dynamics that have dominated the internet, right? Do you remember in like the mid 90s when the internet was just coming onto people's consciousness?
I was just born in the
I remember that. Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Yes, I remember it very well.
And Bill Gates wrote this book, The Road Ahead, I think, and there was all these the predictions. You remember the predictions about, like, there were words like level, like the world will be leveled, the world is Tom Friedman, the world is flat.
Wasn't Paul Krugman, the very smart and wise Paul Krugman? Didn't he totally? I apologize if I'm getting this wrong. Please, no defamation suits. But there was someone of that stature who basically said this is just a passing fad.
Really? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But there was a prediction of, here was the structure of rhetoric or argument around the internet that I think is so helpful for right now. The prediction was, and Bill Gates literally wrote this in his Road Ahead book, and I think I quote it in Winners Take All. He basically said, until now, the world has been subject to what I'm going to call, not him, a bunch of like human bullshit. People like to dominate each other. Some people like to grab things. People like power. All these kind of like lower order human attributes, like the dark side of us. Until now, we've had hierarchy. We've had some people being better than other people, castes and tribes and all this stuff. But the internet is now coming, he said. And the internet doesn't care what your color is. The internet doesn't care what your caste is. The internet doesn't care about hierarchies or whether you're wearing the right kind of tweed jacket. So the internet, he predicted, is this inherently leveling thing that has no place and time for all this human bullshit and this desire to dominate. It's just going to want the best people, and it's just going to, rank the best website that's objectively the best.
Yeah.
And it was such an optimistic thing. I think we all, to some degree, got swept up in a certain kind of hope. And now you could say 25, 30 years later, I mean, the internet has ended up, it has had certain empowering effects for people on the wrong end of power, for sure. If you are an undiscovered, brilliant singer in small town India, your odds of getting discovered on YouTube, are obviously 1,000 times greater than they would have been in 1993. That is real. No one should minimize that. But the internet doubled down the power equations of the past instead of shattering them. We are in a more feudal kind of power distribution after this leveling technology than before. And so I fear with AI that it's just going to become another one of those things, unless we insist that it doesn't have to be.
I'm going to, before concluding, change the title of this live stream from Cardi B Contains Multitudes.
I still like that.
What about this one? The Entropy of Hope.
Wow. What about Cardi B Contains the Entropy of Hope? It would really be good for search engine optimization of Cardi B in there.
Fly off the shelves.
Yes. You think Cardi will join us? We have a lot in common.
Cardi B or not Cardi B? That's the question. I think not.
Really?
Well, you could. If anyone could get her, you could get her. I don't think I can get her.
I mean, she and I like the same kind of politics, and she and you, talk about.
Well, let's work. We could talk about
criminal activity a lot. So that's something you have in common,
right? So this is the highest compliment I can pay someone. I could talk to you for many hours. I will say, should I say this? I don't think I should say this. I was at a dinner recently. I'm just going to say I was at a dinner recently.
Okay.
You walk into a dinner and there's lots of great people, and then this is the highest compliment you can pay someone. There are lots of great people at the dinner, as you remember, Anand. And I remember being very pleased because you were like, who are we going to sit next to? I was very pleased that they put the two Indian brothers next to each other, and I got to talk to you all evening.
Yes.
My only regret is we weren't able to live stream that conversation. So we made up for it today. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you. Always your energy, so happy to chat with you.
And your accumulation of wealth, stealthily. I really appreciate that.
Strategy. Unbelievable.
That's strategy, my friend. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll have to do this again many, many times, and you can take your shots at me.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.